Well, we are in a different location, which should be obvious if you're watching on YouTube. We have a gorgeous view behind us, and then directly behind that is the window to the outside world.
Yes.
But of course, I'm talking about this drum set here.
Beautiful drum set.
God's
back there.
holiest instrument.
Most holy.
Which are the drums.
Yes. We've caged them, though, which I'm kind of upset about. But
well, you know what? There had to be a veil back in the day, because you couldn't just come to the glory of God just directly, right?
Right.
And the drum set still doesn't have a proper mediator. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's why we tie bells to James when he's back there, just to make sure he doesn't die. Got to drag him out just in case. Right. Yeah, touching those drums. What are your views on drums, by the way, Tim?
Which one are you talking to?
Oh, gosh, this is going to be real hard. This Tim in yellow. I mean, we know his views. Yeah,
we keep doing this.
Are you pro or anti-drum? Southards, that's what I'll say.
Me?
Yeah,
Okay.
Southards, yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely falling to the pro drum category. I'm down with the percussion. That's what I've been known as.
That's what the kids call you on the streets. Is down with
like, look at that guy.
That guy is
he looks like he's down with the percussion.
I knew he'd have the right answers.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not anti-drum.
Well, we wouldn't have had you on here if you were.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do. I mean, there's a time and place, right? I mean, like if you're trying to do an acoustic hymn sing-along, then probably not bring a drum into it too much. But
or maybe just only drums, probably.
Or just only drum, just a little.
It's all about moderation, fitting the right type, the right style with the right moment, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
there's a scriptural lesson in there somewhere.
We're going to jump right over those here, though. That's not what we do here, Brandon. Those are the Tommy episodes.
Stay in your lane.
That's right. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, okay. So we've already said hi. We said your name is Tim, but
I am Tim.
Tim, if you just want to tell anybody, the 4 people that are watching this, kind of who you are and.
Fine. Fair. Okay, 4 people. I'm Tim Southards. My home church I grew up in was Southside Church of God, and so that's how I know these Hoosiers. And presently, we are sitting at Camp Sharon, which is a very past, current, and future interest and passion of mine. So we'll talk more about that. But I do reside in the St. Louis area. I've been married for 20 years. I have 3 daughters. I have 2 grandkids and 1 more on the way next year, which is overwhelming at times, but good too.
I'm not gonna call you Tim anymore. I'm just calling you Grandpa.
That's I've been called. They call me Pop. So
Pops.
That's right. I'm Pop, and so that's my life. I work in the water and wastewater industry in the St. Louis.
You do smart stuff.
I mean, I try to dumb it down for the real folks. I don't want to be too heady, but
that's good because Brandon won't follow you.
I once asked him what he did, and he just drew a diagram of a hill and water going off of it. He's like, "This is basically what I do." Yeah. I said, "Oh, thank you, sir."
Yeah. I got gravity down. So no, I do. Yeah, I do water and wastewater things across. I mean, St. Louis area primarily, but across Missouri, and so I'm mostly proud about what I do, and I mean, there's time.
Mostly proud. Is there a shady side to this business that you're not telling us about?
Let's not act like 100%.
Sometimes you're putting water up the hill instead of down. Is that what you're doing?
I do that. That's what I do. That's what I have to work a lot harder. When it goes downhill, it's easy. To make it go uphill is a whole different story.
Conveyor belts, I'd assume. Yes.
Something like that. Usually we just hire a whole bunch of people in buckets.
I was going to say buckets. Yeah.
Well, this water conversation is very compelling, but I think
baptism was a few episodes back, actually. So we'd try to stay on topic. Yeah.
We've done that one already. You know what? We mentioned, though, we're here at Camp Sharon. This is something that you're passionate about. So just giving my perspective for a minute. When I started coming to Southside, it was like 6 years ago, one of the first events that I got to go to was the men's retreat here at Camp Sharon. And I think we had like 4 or 5 people come from Southside at that time. And that's when I really first met you, Tim. And then this is really the only time we ever talk is down here, but it's always a pleasure. Yeah, appreciate that. But we kind of saw it grow about a year or 2 later. Well, tell me if I got this story right, because like the first time we were down here, or that I came down, my understanding is that Brandon and a few others kind of helped get you thrust into maybe a spotlight
Yeah,
position?
he was volunteered.
He was volunteered.
He volunteered to be the leader of the entire thing. Yeah,
That was an exciting day.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
I reluctantly went to the business meeting against my better judgment, and then they're like, "Hey, we've got some situations here with leadership," and then all of a sudden I was the last man standing.
You were.
And I was just like, "Oh, here we are."
And then I think I seconded that opinion to bring Tim on. Yeah, I'll second that. Bring Tim on in.
did.
Yeah.
And I tried to tell everybody that, like, listen, there's procedures here, and I'm not eligible, and everybody just said,
He does so good with water. Let's bring him on here.
That's it. Let
The
it be-
water's really close.
"Let it be so."
Yeah.
And there we are. So that's what. Yeah, I mean that was probably what 6 years ago.
Probably. You've been on the
Something.
board ever since then, haven't
Yeah,
you?
I've tried to get off it since then.
Yeah,
But
we're not going to let you. Yeah, for sure.
Well, when you're good at something, people don't want to let you go.
Yeah.
So, I've really enjoyed coming down here these last few years, and I think what has it been the last 5 years now? Our church has provided the band for the
that
event.
sounds about right.
Probably, yeah.
Which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We get to bring a nice group of guys down. I think it's increased our attendance here, which is great.
Yeah.
Every year.
I, in all seriousness, and I've been kind of alluded to this last night a little bit, but the Southside Man Band here is, and this is going to sound a little bit icky the way I say it, but it's my favorite worship experience of the year.
Oh, thanks,
wow.
man.
It really is. Like I don't know that you're supposed to have a favorite worship experience.
No.
You know, I mean that part
For
of
sure.
it, that part
Yeah.
of it feels weird, but like the authenticity of that moment,
Right.
and just, I mean, you guys are all great at what you do besides that, but I just love the rawness of it all, and I love the realness of it all. It's just like there's not, it's not like, amped up performance where you feel like people are putting on a show. It's a bunch of real guys up here that have given their own time,
Real men, yeah.
to come and lead other men in worship, and it's just really, I don't know. There's something about that moment this worship experience that the Southside Man Band does that I just really, really appreciate.
That's cool. I'm glad to hear that. Tim and I and all the guys who do it, we love it. I mean, we love doing it. We love doing it with these guys too. And, it's just a lot of fun. And so I think that's what's really cool, to kind of second Tim's opinion, just to see the evolution of even just the men's retreat in the last few years of participation, but speakers and things like that has just been, I get every year. It's so cool because as a pastor, I see so many people year in and year out get something like completely different than what I got, but it's exactly what they needed, and so that's cool. I'm glad to hear that worship can be a part of that,
Yeah, it's my favorite part about coming down is having that opportunity to do worship in a different setting, and to just be genuine, to be among men and brothers who are going through the same things that we're going through, to be able to talk to them afterwards and grow together. This is such a great experience.
Yeah.
And we're talking a lot about the men's ministry here, but I know at Camp Sharon, there's more than just that. There's a lot of stuff that happens here. One of my favorite parts about coming to, though, is I get to hear Brandon and I get to hear Dan tell stories about times when they came down here as kids. And of course, you pop up every once in a while in some of those stories.
A few.
He pops up in the cabins, actually. He comes up and stands and be like, "Oh, there's Tim's. There's Tim's name right there." I was like, "Okay, yeah."
So I'm curious, outside of what you just said, which again, thank you for saying that, but outside of the worship experience you have here at Man Camp, do you have any other favorite stories or moments that you remember just about being here?
My history with Camp Sharon goes back, for me as an individual at this point, probably 35 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then,
He built the camp. I don't know if you know that. Yeah. That's why we brought him back.
Stone by stone.
and then even prior to that, both my parents had experiences here when they were young adults and teenagers. And then even before that, like my grandparents would come here and camp.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So
I thought it started with your parents.
No. So we, just to kind of back everything up for whoever's not completely initiated. So Southside Church is part of a larger organization in Missouri called the Missouri Ministries of the Church of God. Missouri Ministries of the Church of God is a network of churches. There you go. And
well said. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And and Camp Sharon is one of the facilities that is owned and operated by Missouri Ministries. We're like 39-ish acres. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's in that ballpark.
It's big.
It's close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, 39-ish acres on the Lake of the Ozarks.
Add those lake miles in. You're got to
yeah,
be even bigger.
So we're on the Gravois Arm of
Yep.
the 4-mile marker of the Gravois Arm, the Lake of the Ozarks. So if you know the Lake of the Ozarks, that's the kind of neighborhood we're in. We're situated squarely between Laurie and Gravois Mills. And anyway, this facility, we just celebrated this last weekend at Labor Day, celebrated the 75th anniversary of Camp Sharon.
That's awesome.
And and there's been literally thousands of people who have come through here in many different capacities and facets. And I can't speak towards the 75 years worth of what Camp Sharon has been.
Sure.
My involvement I can only have a recollection of the last 35 years or so. And
Your parents met here, right?
parents did meet here.
Yeah.
So back in the early 70s, there was a young adult event, and my dad was in college and came down for that. My mom was working in the kitchen. Sparks flew. Here we are.
There we are.
You know,
she made him run around that mess hall a couple times, and then there you go.
that.
Yeah,
Exactly right. So I mean, so there's lots of like intertangled webs throughout my family on both sides of my family that involve Camp Sharon because of their participations in the Missouri Ministries churches over the decades. So circle it back. So Camp Sharon, this facility, we have a number of recreational facilities. We have a number of lodging facilities. We have the lake. And so we've developed ourselves into this spot on the lake where groups can come and gather and have retreats. We do summer youth camps. We've hosted other groups for family reunions or church retreats or whatever you name it. That's what the facility is for. Just trying to find a place where people can isolate, and not in a negative way, in a positive
right. Sure, no, 100%. Sure.
Yeah, turning off the noises of the outside world, and
cell phone service is limited.
It's
very limited. Yeah.
And just kind of simplify everything to where we're going to just focus some time on our relationships with God and relationships with each other.
Yeah.
And specifically for the camping program, that's what the goals are. It's just, let's turn off the noise. It's device-free week. Sometimes, even if you wanted one, it doesn't
100%. Yeah, for the
but
kids
then
especially.
Definitely for the students, we'll typically hold them, and so it's just like this is where we're at. We're going to be present and real right here, and this becomes their world for 5 days, 6 days, and just let God move within them, and let them build relationships that can be their that can support them, not sustainers, but support them as they proceed through their teenage years and beyond. And so that's kind of what that is now. So a lot of my memories revolve around the youth camping program. Okay. So I participated in that all my years growing up.
He was a counselor when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You and Mason. That was. Oh man. Yeah.
There's dozens of stories and YouTube videos and and things that were out there.
Eddie was here too.
Oh
yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the things that I really appreciated, as time progresses, like I'm in that age where I kind of cross over between Gen X and millennial, right? Okay. So it's like I'm one of those in betweeners. Yeah. And so I have like this analog childhood, but my digital adolescence. All right. And camp was similar.
Yep.
I'm gonna drive it to this point.
100%. I actually know what you're saying. Yeah.
So we went to camp was even more rustic in my formative years.
I remember the outdoor tabernacle.
Outdoor tabernacle, this structure here did not exist.
Nope.
It was an outdoor tabernacle with wooden pews
where you got
and
splinters.
You did, and there'd be bats flying around and stuff like that.
I remember girls screaming. Yes.
Yeah. And so there was the outdoor tabernacle. All of none of the cabins were air conditioned, so everything was open air. Yeah, and then so you're in July and open air, and so you learn to navigate all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It was that, and then as that was my entire childhood camp experiences, and then as I was counseling Brandon and his peers,
the weaker generations.
That's right, softer generations, and we made these transitions to things. All of a sudden, we're air conditioning these spaces. We have more AV capabilities because that's what they're accustomed to.
My cabin got down to 61 last night, but I was freezing. I've never been cold at this camp in my life. Holy cow! Yeah,
it felt great.
It was, yeah.
And so I have memories that were unique to the older style of camp, where you heard everything all night long. You could hear the other cabins talking at night.
Yeah.
And you could hear kids
for sure.
The screen doors slamming.
Yeah, the screen door. Oh yeah.
And then I also have a lot of memories of as a counselor with the new facilities
for
here
sure.
and being part of the kids and how do we do things here. And so there's different, you know, not, I don't know, it's really common now. We want to keep using different eras.
Right.
Thanks,
Sure.
Taylor. But like, I mean,
Yeah, thanks, Taylor.
there are different eras.
Yeah,
and so there's different eras at Camp Sharon. For
Sure.
the camping program, there's different eras for the men's retreat. You know, it's been going
Sure.
on for a long time and just kind of goes through different seasons with, you know, who's in leadership, what the constituency, for lack of a better word, is requiring or needing or contributing. And so we're just always trying to be relevant and cognizant of those needs and finding ways of being present and available and a resource for all of those things.
Right.
So whether it's a men's retreat, what can we do to be a better men's retreat?
Right, sure.
What can we do how can we help host a place where men can get away and reconnect with each other and try to maybe forget about some other responsibilities for a weekend and just be still.
Right.
And, or if it's for the youth camps or the other things, you know, it's like, how can we create these facilities to further enhance the ways that we disconnect and build relationships with God and each other? And just doing that all in a way that ultimately we hope honors God and are good stewards of the resources that we've had, and you know, just being a place where people can come and be a sanctuary. I think that's the word. That's the word I want to get to, is that we want Camp Sharon to be a sanctuary for peoples and groups and activities.
For sure.
And that's our.
I appreciate the modernizing of the camp and the air conditioning. I do appreciate that, but like, it's cool to still see like some of the traditions that are preserved, like especially with like the youth camps, because that's same thing. Like I have memories of those, and like, you know, putting your elbows on a table, like the kids, if you put your elbows on a table, they sing a song. And it was funny because they used to make you run. I mean, they still do. They make you run around the mess hall, is what we used to call it. And it used to be a long building.
Yeah.
Now it's a little shorter run. You know, a little shorter, but they still make you do. So it's cool because there's things that like your kids and my kids and their kids will partake in the same things we did in some ways. Albeit in air conditioning with Wi-Fi capabilities and projectors, you know.
Everybody's got stories at this point of what it was like climbing up the hill.
Oh,
you know,
for sure.
And so I have to walk up that hill again.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can go back 3 generations now and say, I remember when I going to have to walk up that hill at Camp Sharon.
Yeah. 100%.
And then or coming down and swimming in the lake.
Yep.
You know, and what that was like. And you know, there's the little things like that. Some of them overlap and some of them change, and then there's always fun. It's like I'm old enough now where I'm like, I remember the first time we did that.
Yeah.
But and they're still doing it today, which is insane. But no, it brings a lot of commonality, and it's fun when we're in these multi-generational things to kind of see how it evolves, but also appreciate how it ties everybody together. It's also fun to see people experience it for the first time. I've been blessed over the course of my life to be able to introduce people to Camp Sharon. But I've been in a season here recently for the last 3 years or so where I've been doing lots of introductions to Camp Sharon. And, you know, to see the teenagers or the students come back and just be changed.
Oh, for sure.
And just like, you know, they had an experience that we call it the week that lasts a lifetime.
Right.
And it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, because while you're in it, particularly as an adult, sometimes like, is this week ever going to get over?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's a different type of lifetime.
That's right. This week is lasting a life, and then when it's over with, it sticks with you.
Sure,
it's like, this week changed my life for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so when you see that on these kids' faces, I mean, some of them are, we call it that they go through withdrawals when they leave.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's like these kids, a lot of parents are like, my kids are crabby. I'm like, well, they're in withdrawals right now. They wanted to be back at camp. They bawl when they were driving up the hill for the last time, and they develop these friendships and their relationships. They just want to be.
You circle it on your calendar.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's like we're planning on it, and
we do it with main camp even.
Yeah,
we circle it. Yeah.
When you have that first experience again, it's just like, all right. Now you know what we're talking about. You know what the preferences are. You know you feel it. You're in, and you feel like you have literally changed the person's life, the trajectory of that life.
For sure.
Right there.
For sure.
And what better way to do that with developing relationships with other Jesus followers or people who have similar backgrounds and attitudes to say, you know.
And it centers around Jesus. I mean, it's not just camp that changes. It's the camp and then the time with the Lord and the area that it's in. I mean, yeah, it's a transformational time, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that's it. Is that there is a ton of fun, but everything is centered around everything is intentional about we want to direct kids towards a greater relationship with Jesus. And we will use everything at our disposal to do that. We will do fun activities. We will do meal times.
Oh, yeah.
We will do, try to build the relationships, the quiet times in the cabins, the noisy times outside. And ultimately, it's about us as, people who are leading the camp as being Jesus to them as much as anything. But that's the goal.
I think eventually, I know at some point they're going to have to redo the cabins, and I would love to see just, obviously you can't get rid of those walls because, for those who don't know at Camp Sharon, especially with the camps, but even with the men's retreat, we all signed, which we're in a girls' cabin. So all these girls, these little girls, the next year come and they got all these dudes' names, and they're like, what? But like you can sign the walls of the cabin, and that's been that's been going on for it was going on when it's
probably at least 50 years.
I was going to say the walls are covered with permanent marker. I would love to see that turn, when we remodel, turn that. You could build and what a way to see how long this generational thing goes back and how many lives have been touched. You can
easily look in some of the older cabins and find names that go.
I'm saying I've seen your name
early 70s and late 60s.
Yeah, 100%.
See there was so and so 72, so and so
100%. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It speaks to the importance of legacy. Like Camp Sharon and what's happening here is leaving a legacy, not just on individuals but on families.
Yes,
and on generations. Right. Like you talked about your grandparents coming, then your parents, and then you were here, and now you're introducing it to your kids and to your grandkids. And, I brought my son with me to Man Camp this year, first time he gets to come out at 14 years old. So, it builds something each year. It builds something each decade. It builds something consistently. And what I love that shines out on everything that you just talked about is it all stems from one purpose, right? This vision is get people closer to God.
Yeah.
How do we first introduce them to God? Second, how do we get them to walk with God? Thirdly, how do we get them to walk with each other while they walk with God, right? And I think that is such a wonderful and powerful thing. So with that in mind, do you have any additional words on why is this important to the body of Christ? Why should there be 700 more Camp Sharons across the United States,
Yeah, so just in complete transparency, there are a number of church camps across the country, different denominations and faith groups and whatever, in recent years, and particularly post-COVID.
Yeah.
It's been extremely difficult for a lot of them to stay sustainable. We've seen a kind of, for lack of a better word, almost like an urbanization of them, where they've kind of conglomerated to become these bigger, larger, gigantic type camps. And some of those, in my opinion, become, I'm not going to knock it, but they also become financially out of reach for a lot of people.
For sure.
And so Camp Sharon for us, Camp Sharon as a goal is to be as available. We are a ministry first. So when people say, I want to go, but I can't, we're always say, work through your local church to try to get funding to go. But at the end of the day, we're not turning anybody away. So we want people to be here and experience that. We feel like that time away and changing the scenery for them is important. Sometimes people need to be away from their siblings or parents or whatever.
Yeah.
And turning, getting rid of the screens at this point, this generation for a week is just such a breath of fresh air for them. And for even as teenagers and adults, turning out, not knowing what's going on in the outside world.
Sure.
What's going on with the politics and the news and everything else. You have no idea for 5 days.
Right.
And it just helps crystallize and simplify, I think, what a lot of our priorities should be. Now, that doesn't mean real world challenges don't exist.
Sure.
But I think it's quite obvious that Jesus was very relational and very much, he had his minds on eternal issues, not necessarily temporal, earthly issues.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's just a little glimpse into that, where here in this controlled environment, as a participant, you have no worries.
Right.
Food's taken care of.
Yep.
Lodging's taken care of. Entertainments or activities are taken care of.
100%.
You have all these relationships around you that we're fostering a very positive environment.
Right.
So we're in this environment that we hope is almost to be a reflection of heaven on earth.
Right.
In some degree, for whatever we feel like that might be. And so we want to just people feel and experience God's love through that experience. And so if anybody who hasn't had a chance to experience God's love in that way of we're going to take you out of everything you know and put you into an environment that you don't have to worry about anything, just be present and experience God's love. That's what we're shooting for. And I think everybody would want to hope. I want everybody to experience that on some level right now.
Sure.
And then know that that's the promise of things to come.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that whatever you're experiencing now, the greatness that you have, the sorrow that you have that you're leaving that environment, guess what? At someday, when Jesus comes to live with us again, we're all going to feel that warmth and security and completeness.
Right.
Yeah.
For eternity.
Well, I think you like nailed the nail on the head when you were like, there we are in some ways trying to, and not in a bad way, but like trying to recreate that idea of heaven. Like one of the things that you were just saying that just really dawned on me is it's like, unlike those other camps, not knocking on those camps, but Camp Sharon, you're together.
Yeah.
And we're big, but we're not huge to where like there's not 37 different groups. There's one group, and so you all eat together. And so it's interesting because we've Mark, I'll just put his name out there, passed away recently.
Yeah.
He was a fixture at the man camp.
Yeah.
Even our guys, like there was a guy who didn't come last year, and that was his first year not here. Was like, man, I really miss Mark praying because he would pray like with authority, man. That dude, and so, but it's like but we don't know Mark because Mark doesn't go to our church,
right.
but we get the opportunity to.
Yeah.
And we get the opportunity, like even this year, it's like, oh man, I had a friend and I was like, oh, he's not here this year.
Yeah.
And so there's things that like I think is really cool about this camp and that shifts a little bit different. It's like you said, it's like we're gonna get to heaven and we're gonna be together.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be different.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be unique, but we're gonna be together. And Camp Sharon really embraces that. Like you be an individual, but be an individual in your community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
like
exactly
be a part
right.
of it. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. We all come from different places across the state,
Yeah.
the region. We all have our different backgrounds. We have our different challenges.
Yeah, we're the city people. All these other people out here hunting and fishing all day long. Yeah.
And
We're like, where's the Wi-Fi? Yeah.
But we all come together with this commonality.
100%.
Like we're here to worship Jesus.
100%. That's cool.
And that's really, that's scriptural right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like all these different backgrounds will come together and have this unity in Christ.
Yeah.
And so I think that's hard to really sometimes, I think in our day-to-day walk and our weekly church rhythms, it's hard to get out of the norms. It's hard to break out of the societal things. It's hard to break out of, man, I got to get back to, I got to get to work. We got to get to, we got to get to Ryan's before the Methodists do.
Right.
We got to do whatever, and so it's like, or whatever. Hopefully this is just a retreat, a sanctuary from everything. That's the end. At the end of the day, we're not doing anything unique. We're still doing worship. We're still reading out of the same Bible.
100%.
We're still doing, a lot of us are still the same people.
100%.
But we're just trying to provide a little bit of a sanctuary we literally call it a retreat because we want it to be that. We want it to be low key and relaxed and let things organically happen and just be. Just be still for a few minutes and not worry about all of the noise and not worry about where you're supposed to be next, and just take a few minutes and let God speak to you, let somebody else speak into you, speak into somebody else, whatever that time is needed to allow that to happen.
And I think that really, it's that really changes you, as you have those quiet times and you have those times. And I was just thinking, it's funny, like the difference between here, like, so I go to church with all the guys that I know them all, they come to our church, but I know them different being here, and that time together changes things.
So it does. And that brings up a very specific point, Brandon, is that I think when it comes to men's ministry, very specifically, I think men build relationships by being side by side, doing something together.
Sure.
You can put men in a room together and say, talk.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to be said. You put women together in a room and talk, and they're still there.
Yeah. Right.
But men, it's like we don't necessarily need to talk.
Right.
To build trust with one another.
Right.
But if we can go through an experience together, then all of a sudden we have.
I can't call you guys up and be like, you guys want to have a sleepover? But here it's like I'm sleeping with these dudes in a bunkhouse. You know what I mean? That sounds a little weird, but I'm being serious. Like there's a sense of like I know these guys in a different and then we have stories that we go home with.
You have these shared experiences now that brings that it creates this bond, this commonality that you have again.
Right.
That you can now say, you know what? I saw that guy in his boxers. And that was...
We thought he died in his sleep because he was snoring and he stopped.
exactly
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't know how rhythmic six CPAP machines could be. But they are.
Yeah.
And, but then all of a sudden, then you start. That's where the barriers break down.
Oh,
and
for
that's
sure.
where you can start being real with one
For
another.
sure.
It's like sometimes it's that big step. It's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to go to one of these events.
Right.
Then once you do, and you're on the other side of it, it's like those guys. We shared some experiences together.
I have guys who say, I need to come down.
Yeah,
I need this time, not because I want to get away from my family, but I need to be in this place to have this experience because I don't, it's something different.
Something about sharing that
yeah.
experience. I think men in general just go to the shared experiences. That's
Yeah.
why you have war buddies and football buddies
Sure.
and things like that. It's like we shared that time together. And this is the opportunity that we can effectively do that now in a way that hopefully directs us towards
Sure.
Jesus.
And it's not just for men. There's women and families and kids. I mean, that's the cool thing too about Camp Sharon is it's, we've been focused on the men's and the children's because they're the kids, students, whatever you want to call it. But like you said, young adults, there's so many things that like, this is just a space to really, like you said, it forces you out of that kind of comfort zone of normal.
Yes.
And then it puts you in a place of like, okay, now I'm going to be confronted with, now I have the chance at least rather to be confronted with things that I wouldn't normally be confronted with that I get to wrestle with, whether spiritually or whatever. And then relationally, you build people who then in those times you go home and you're out of here. And like you said, it's your war buddy. You call them up and you're like, hey, man, I really need you to pray for me because this is going on in my life. And remember we talked,
Right.
and I think that happens at church, but it happens different here.
Yeah, it's a safe place.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a safe place for guys for people to be vulnerable.
100%. Yeah.
And so that hopefully that safe that's what leads to breakthrough.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
So
yeah.
You were asking Tim initially. I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
about some of the moments for me, and I can think of. I mean, there's a bunch of different moments, whether it was praying with kids or just things that I've witnessed happen over camp over the years. And for me, this is one of the few places that I feel like, and it doesn't have to be during an event.
Sure.
Like we're sitting right now. This worship center sits on top of the hill, and then right over in front of us is the ball field area,
right.
the top of the hill. And I don't know why, but over the course of my life, there's been several instances where it's just like where I needed to come to Jesus for real.
Yeah.
It's like there's a line in the movie. I think it's the Apostle Robert Duvall, and so this is your territory. And so Robert Duvall's like praying to God, but he's like, and then June Carter Cash is like his mom or something like that, which is weird. And she's like, sometimes he talks to God and sometimes he yells at him, And so anyway, that reminds me, because sometimes I feel like I have those,
Sure.
like, I'm not hearing from you, God.
Right.
I need some direction on this. I need clarity. And I haven't heard from you in a long time.
Oh, sure.
And for whatever reason, for me, I'm not going to pretend like there's something specific, like this is the only place that happens, but this is the way it is for me, is that I have walked miles on that ball field over there, just in the stillness of the moment, in the middle of the night, waiting, talking to God, yelling at God, pleading for God to talk to me. And there's been instances where that's the one place where I feel like that. I feel like I can have that happen in my life. It doesn't happen that way at home. It doesn't happen that way at any of the churches that I've been associated with. It's not sitting there at the altars at those places.
Right.
It's like that place over there is where I feel I can commune with God in a way that I can't anywhere else.
Sure.
That's speaking specifically for me, and that's just been my history. But yeah, if I got something real, that's one of the spots.
Place you go. Yeah.
That's powerful. And I think it's important that, anybody out there hearing this or watching this knows that you don't have to come to a Camp Sharon to find a place like that. But it's important that you find a place like that.
100%.
I just hearing you talk about it and kind of going through that. I know for me, it's when everybody's gone to bed and I'm practicing, I've got my headphones in and I'm practicing worship songs for the next service. And they hit in a different way that takes me to a different place with God to talk to him about things that are on my heart, things that are on my mind, things that I don't understand, things that I need, and just wanting to be closer to him. And that comes with me when we come down here and we play here. I feel that same way when we're up here. of like, it doesn't matter if I hit this note wrong. Right. We hit a bunch of wrong notes yesterday.
Yeah, we did. Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
What matters is that is my heart in this? Am I getting through? I just want to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell him that it doesn't matter what's going on. I know he's still God. Mm-hmm. And welcome him into my life on a daily basis. As our speaker this weekend has brought up, is we don't do these things on an event. It's not just on a calendar.
Yeah,
It's what we do every day. But places like this, it's not just about getting away from something. Mm-hmm. It's about bringing something back
with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you learn things here that you take back and you find in your own area 100%. Yeah.
Well, I think, I feel like we've covered everything. Brandon, I want to throw it down to you for a second just to see if you've got any additional stories or shares that you would like to bring up. And Tim, if there's anything else that's on your heart that you want to share with anybody, please by all means take it. But otherwise, we can.
I don't know.
Because there's a whole lake out there that we could be on right now.
There is a whole lake. Yeah, we will be. I mean, I think one of my all-time favorite memories is when we almost sunk your boat.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorites. And the best part was your brother today said it in the most pastoral way he possibly could, which is that I hear, what did he say? He said, I hear we're going to have to be careful about the variations or something. He said that to Dan, and I said, Dan, he's just saying we're fat and we can't all get on the boat at the same time. Yeah. I can't remember what he said exactly, but yeah, no, I mean, they're like, yeah.
That was a trip.
That was a trip. When I saw your look on your face and you said everybody to the back of the boat.
I've never seen a pontoon boat go like that for like 5 seconds.
And you hit the wave perfect. You were a good captain.
Tried.
I think, there's just places like this are just so fun because there are so many memories. And I like to joke. I have a lot of fun in my life and a lot of joy in my life. And I mean, like, I got hit by Bryce on the jet skis.
Yeah.
A lot of water related accidents out here, actually. No, but one of my favorite camp memories was it was like 3,000 degrees because it was camp, and we did not have air conditioning yet.
Okay, you're going way back.
I was in Squirrel's Den, or is it Squirrel's Nest or Squirrel's Den?
Squirrel's Den.
Squirrel's Den. That's what I thought. Yeah. I was in Squirrel's Den at the time, so you got to walk up and down the hill. You hate your life. It was still old school shotgun style. Cafeteria, the mess hall, and it was 1,000,000 degrees, and I didn't want to get into the lake, but we had paddle boats, and I can't remember who was down here with me. It might have been my friend Tom. I can't remember who it was, but I convinced a guy. It was like, let's go get paddle boats, and we flipped the paddle boat over. And when we flipped the paddle over, there was a cottonmouth, but we flipped it into the boat so we couldn't get it out. And I just remember, I can't remember if it was one of the Masons, or it might have been Eddie, but someone came over and just got an oar and smacked its head off, and people were screaming, and I was just like, "Welcome to Camp Sharon!" I just remember, I was like, I should have just gotten in the water. But yeah, it was. So that's one of my favorite memories as a kid. I mean, obviously there's spiritual memories and things like that too, but this place just has a lot of fun in my heart. There
are things. I said I can't wait till I die one of these days because there are events here that I know I've laughed to tears and then I can't remember any of them. And I'm like, I can't wait I hope I have the ability to relive a lot of those things
for
again.
Sure.
See it all again.
Sure. I'm like, because it's not an exaggeration to say that the relationships that I built at Camp Sharon as a teenager and as a young adult really helped me stay plugged in spiritually.
For sure.
Going to a large secular public university, being in public high schools, things like that. And so it was those relationships I didn't necessarily have with me all the time.
Yep.
Most of the time I didn't.
Right.
Most of the time it was me by myself, but I had these friendships that were scattered around.
Yeah.
And that really helped keep me grounded until the next time we were able to be together, because we would have such authenticity, such fun. And I'm like, man, so if these Jesus followers can have fun,
Before the days of emails, remember, we used to write letters. I'd write letters to people. I write letters to my date for the dance, and I'd write letters to my friends after camp.
Meet me at the big tree.
yeah. You could get married here, man. You never know. You might. Your parents are living proof.
That's right. I mean, that's happened more than once.
That's right. I'm sure.
They're not the only ones. I can think of probably 4 or 5 others.
Oh, that's too funny.
But no, man. I mean, there's just some ridiculously stupid memories too that are just hilarious. I mean, just hilarious. A lot of them are Masonic.
Yeah, Mason. I mean, I was so glad to be here when he was his last year. Hearing him read the mail just was so key. It's so perfect. Him. Yeah.
We he gave me the freedom as a director, or no, he was the director. I was a producer, but he gave me the freedom to kind of, navigate within my own space, right? And so you do what you want to do. As long as I'm not doing it, I don't care. And so we would just like, I get these wild, crazy, like Letterman-esque ideas, and like, what if we did this? What if we did that? And then sometimes when you're sleep deprived, it gets even crazier.
Oh yeah.
And so we would have so many jokes that were just for us. You're making jokes about like, Slobodan Milosevic, and the kids are like, "What's going on?" And just like, "What?" There's Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop, and they're like, "Who is Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop?" Like, half the other people, the adults, didn't know it either, but Greg and I thought it was hilarious.
Oh my gosh!
Or the one I remember, the people that haven't been in camp, the youth camp part, there's weirdness like the Gravy song, which was just a magical time when that got written, and. So the Gravy song has a special place in my heart. So does Ultimate Cow Tongue. Ultimate Cow Tongue is the game of Ultimate played with a cow tongue.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, instead of a frisbee, it's a cow tongue.
Yeah.
It's legit. It's awesome.
It gets intense. It really does get intense.
I bet that's hard to handle.
Yeah, it's actually drier than you think.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just you're swinging this big old thing of meat around. And he did it at one point in time. It was Ultimate like chicken breast or something dumb like that, and he's like, I don't think the kids should be handling raw chicken. I'm like, probably not.
Mason was
and
the
so
best.
we were just riffing one day.
Okay.
We were on the way here. We were at Hetty's wedding in Cincinnati, outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, and we had to get right back here for camp to start. And so we hightailed it from Cincinnati to St. Louis and stayed with my parents that night. And then I was going on, so I rode with Greg and Tina back here, and then my family went back home, and then they were going to come up for their part of the camp a day or so later. And so we'd been up all night driving from Cincinnati to St. Louis, and we're pounding like iced coffees and things like that just to get here. And so then we just started saying, I don't think we should do this ultimate chicken.
Ultimate chicken. Seminoles.
So we
outbreaks high.
Yeah, we just start throwing out like random cuts of meat, and all of a sudden we ended on ultimate cow tongue. And then Greg has a thing that when he starts something funny, he's just like, like this. And so he's driving like this. I'm like,
that's it. There it is.
That's it. So it's been ultimate cow tongue for the last, 14, 15 years.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Man.
And I don't know, just a bunch of randomness, and a bunch of great people. And a bunch of, what an opportunity to serve, and what an opportunity to try to, it's one of the rewarding things for me has been as an adult, have some of those counselors, Brandon hasn't done this yet, but others have, and say, Tim, you helped camp change my life, and you were a part of that experience, and thank you for that.
Thanks.
Man, that's been.
I'll say that someday.
Thank you. I'll wait for that. But that happened 2 times in a spot in my life where I really needed to hear it, and it was just so, man, it was just so rewarding.
Right.
It's not that I'm doing it for me, but just to know that, sometimes you get caught up in the moments, and you're like, people, I think they're changing lives. I think they're listening.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to come back. 100%. I think they're going to serve the Lord in their own ways as they mature.
Yeah.
And then when you see it happening, and they say, you're part of my journey.
Yeah, that's cool.
Man.
Yeah, and it's cool to see them, like you said, they go from kid to counselor to to you. You know what I mean? It's crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, people lay leaders in their churches, or people who are in vocational ministry. I mean, doing all, you name it, they're doing it. And when you see that happening again and again, you're thinking we must be doing something. Must be doing
Right. 100%. Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Makes it all worth it.
it does. It absolutely does. Absolutely does.
Man, this has been awesome. I appreciate all the stories, and I think something I've learned just being a part of this camp, and I think people are picking up on here, is that you don't always have to be serious to change lives.
No.
And I have
Golly, no.
I have loved the joy that we get to have here.
Yeah.
This is a total aside, but that's like not to get all like. That's one of the things I love about The Chosen.
Sure.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
It's like, yeah. I mean, they show these guys being humans, and Jesus, particularly as that character is written in that show, is
Right.
entertaining and makes
Right.
jokes. And,
Really funny, actually,
and,
yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
sarcastic comments
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
expense of
Yeah.
some of the circumstances. I'm like, that's real.
Right,
You can
right.
see that happen.
Right.
These guys, anytime you're going to get 13 guys walking together around for
Oh, yeah.
hours at a time, there's going to be something said
Oh,
that
yeah.
somebody said something stupid and they're going to be made fun of. And so,
My wife asked if I wanted to bring my inhaler to camp, and I was like, "Not with a bunch of men. No, are you kidding me? Do you know what would happen
I would
if
rather
I
die.
pulled my inhaler out to go up that hill? Do you know what would be said for the rest of my life?" Yeah,
everything's about having, we read again and again in Scripture that we're supposed to be full of joy.
100%. Yeah,
And so it's one of the things when you go to church and
Yeah.
the chairman board or lead usher or whatever says, how you doing, sir?
Yeah.
They respond, I'm just barely getting by. Well, that's not
Yeah.
doing it. But
Right.
here, it's just like when you get around some of those people, yes, you can have fun. You can have fun and lead people to Jesus at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
You can
Oh,
be
for sure.
that. Those things aren't mutually exclusive at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
right. There's a time to be serious, but there's also a time to
Exactly.
laugh, and have fun. And yeah,
100%.
And I think camp does that. Not just Man Camp or Camp Sharon, but I think camp in general just does that really well. It allows you space to have fun and have that time where you encounter spiritually the Lord. You know?
And so to tie it back to what you said, Tim, was like a place to get away. We saw Jesus do that same thing, right? Jesus found plenty of time to get away from the crowds, to retreat himself, sometimes in smaller groups, sometimes by himself, but he made it a priority. He says, I need to get away from everything else and spend some time in whether solitude or sanctuary or smaller groups or whatever it is, just more concentrated time. So to me, that's one of the big takeaways. Obviously, Camp Sharon, if that can be a part of your journey, we want to do that.
Sure.
But if anybody has not had that opportunity to take some sort of retreat, organized or not, do that. Get away from life for a weekend, and just find some ways of putting yourself in a circumstance or a situation where you can focus on your relationship with God. And like I said, if that's something you can do solo, more power to you. If that's something that's part of a larger, more organized effort, you can find that. They're out there. 100%. But it takes that time to do that on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. And I would put it up there with find a good drum beat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, make sure wherever you go, make sure there is a drum set available. So
I'm more partial to drumsticks.
yeah. Well, this is a man who
Ice cream guy.
Yeah. He loves his percussion and ice cream. That's what the kids tell me. Yeah,
That's all I hear. I hear bells. Ding ding, man.
Wow. Well, Tim, thanks again for being here. We
Appreciate the invite.
really appreciate it, and I hope everybody out there enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. See you.